How's it, everybody? Welcome back to the Nomasburg region. Sanctum Gamer here, and today, 47 episodes in, and we are finally going to finish off this town. Well, we're going to finish off the main residential areas of the town, and the only thing that will be left to do is the university, which I anticipate we should be able to do in the next video. So yeah, fingers crossed that we get that done. So today we will be closing off the space between the rail yard and the highway. So that's kind of where we are at. If you might remember, a couple of episodes ago we built this abandoned big factory with like a huge tower in it. It's basically top of the screen relative to where we are staring from. The rail yard is directly behind us. So we'll close up this entire space leading up to the river, and going into the next video we'll effectively no longer be working on this town. We'll just build a university and then continue on to the rest of the region. So what we're doing here today is putting in a small little commercial space. I think this is the only commercial space I put around this area. The rest of it is really just residential spaces. We'll put down a school, and this area is going to be filled with a lot of history, and I think we'll tackle each of those historical elements as we are building it. I think I want to put out an ask for a story for this area, because once we get around to building all of the outskirts and all that, you'll see that there's the potential for there to be a lot of history behind it, which I'm hoping that the community can help get a story together that will explain this entire place. I mean, I will give you my thought process as I was building and what was going through my head, but I think the final story can come from members of the community. So after this episode, I will open up the name suggestion channel on my Discord server and put out a call for it. So anybody who's interested in entering a story and name for this area, please jump onto that Discord server and I suppose look out for the call. But for now, it's just this space that this is going to be a very long episode, right? I think it's a good 38 plus minutes, I think. So it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be talking throughout this video. I think that will be a bit much for me. So what I'll do is that from time to time, when we're building stuff that I have built many times over, though I will try and edit through it with some speed, I will probably keep quiet and just let some music play. Which also is another thing, is that this video is slightly different. I leave him quite a lot of stuff, especially around the detailing. I want to see or get your feedback, see if you like all the nitty-gritties of the individual stuff that I place. You'll let me know. But here we're putting down the school. We're going to surround it all with residential areas, and then we'll continue to expand. Also, there's going to be quite a bit of procedural objects in this video, something I don't often do, but yeah, it is there. So whilst we build the school, it's nothing fancy, it's just a school, it's just residential areas. I'll let some music play and I'll chat to you in a bit. You know, in hindsight, I should have actually given my point of reference as the zoo. So the zoo is what you see peeking out on the other side, or peeking out on the other side of that avenue. So between there and the river all the way down is what we'll be filling out with the real yard there to the right. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty old and semi-dilapidated area. And this is really the main theme of today's video. A lot of the areas that we're going to be building will be like this, because we are now on the outskirts of town. So we're gonna have blends of areas that are still fairly well developed, the residential areas, and then blend them out into the not so well developed areas, or at least areas where things have been left to go south, houses have been abandoned, and all that kind of not so pretty places. And that's the aim of this video, is really just to complete things that I'm pretty obsessed at the moment with, blending this town out into its landscape or its surroundings, to make sure that I capture the history that I want in the town, to make sure that it's not seen as a place that is bustling, a place that is nice and great, but rather a place that has seen better times. And I think that sort of stuff allows for a lot of history to be told about the actual town, right? So whilst I'm building, I have this historical thing in my head that there once was something in a particular area and something went down that led to that entire place being left and abandoned. So like the area that we're looking at now is a bunch of warehouses that are alive, but as we build out the space, you'll see that I introduce more worn down areas. In fact, the entire area, as you can see, is pretty dirtied. So it's being used. That's why I wanted warehouses, so that you actually see trucks coming in and out to show that the place is active. There's actually storage happening here. There are things taking place. But at the same time, whatever is happening here, or whichever company or industry owns this place, isn't really making a ton of money. And so it does not have the maintenance budget to ensure that this place is kept up and what's the word, renovated and so on. So this area that you're looking at was perhaps once a big parking space where there were a lot of trucks that would sit there, that would get loaded up with stuff and taken out. But over time, as I guess business left this industry or this factory, that area was left to slowly fall apart. So we put down these wire-framed warehouses. We've got all of these overgrown bushes just to show that nobody's really maintaining this place anymore. But the company that's here still owns the land, and it doesn't necessarily want to sell it or give it away, or perhaps it wants to sell it but nobody wants to buy it. So it's stuck with this big lot of land that is just overgrown with bush and forest and trees, and it's just there. So you have this place that is sort of, it has this potential to come back alive, but nobody is interested. And I think the combination of all of these beaten down warehouses with all these tons of prop assets and dirt decals that I put really captured the place. If you are allergic to detailing with props and decals and so on, this video is not for you, because there's going to be a ton of this. But then in all of this, whenever I see trucks come in, I've got this glitch of trucks flying over, which is so weird. Anyway, we'll figure that out. With all of this happening, as you see cars coming in, I think it just makes the whole place look alive. And then here, I thought, what if we had an area where you have things happening, right? Like spooky things that occur that nobody can explain. So I figured in this area we'll create a little section where there's like a ton of train accidents that have occurred, and you have all these train cars that are just littered across this entire place to show that as trains were coming around here, they would derail and just, tumble into the space. And I want it to be a kind of spooky thing where nobody can explain it. And because of this, it's going to filter out into the surrounding area, and that's what's going to lead to a lot of the abandonment and abandoned houses and stuff that you're going to see in all of this place. So all of those things factored together has made this area quite a bit of a legend of sort in Nomasburg, that these train carts that are all littered here, nobody even wants to go and touch them, right? As trains derail, they just leave the cars just sitting there because nobody can explain what caused that derailment. Oh, by the way, I messed up my camera angle, something that really irked me, but there was nothing I could do about it because the recording was done. Anyways, back to the story. So we have all of these cars that are just sitting here. Nobody wants to clean them up because nobody can explain what caused the accidents. So now you have all of these things here. There's a lot of overgrown bush that has happened, and now the entire area surrounding this space is basically, people are afraid of it. And as a result of that, the people that once live here no longer live here. Their houses have just been left as they are. People would leave their cars on the streets and so on. And it's all because of what happened here. So you can imagine, as a train comes through here, something happens and this thing just goes flying off the rails. Nobody can explain it. Nobody can understand why. Whatever is in the cars just spills out and it's left there, and the government does nothing about it. The local community doesn't come to clean it up. Nothing. And all of these start to pile up over time. Now, the game, of course, has limits. I would love to have dumped more and more props and all kinds of cards and stuff and change their colors and so on, but I need to think about the running capability of the game, and so I've tried to keep it to a decent amount of train cars with the bushes that have overgrown through it, and just to capture the fact that there's just been derailment after derailment after derailment that has happened here, and all of this has just been left there because everybody is just afraid of it. And I think this adds a nice touch and spooky history to this area, and this is part of the story that I want for this space, right? Because this entire area is encapsulated in this spookiness and this abandonment and this whole thing of there's a lot of stuff that has happened here that nobody can explain, but everybody is afraid of it. People don't necessarily want to talk about it. It's that legend or that history of the town that everybody wants to avoid, but it is such a real thing because you can see it from this entire space. So once this area is complete and the video is done, I'll put out a call, like I mentioned earlier, is to get a story for this entire area to say, are there legends around what causes these train accidents? Why have so many people abandoned it? There's that story that everybody is afraid of, and it's a result, and it's the reason why everybody is just leaving and running away. But it doesn't change the fact that there are still those brave souls who stay behind. So this entire area still has residential spaces. There are some people who still stay here with their houses still well developed and well maintained. But as we get closer to where the train accidents or these train accidents continue to happen, you'll see that whole area starts to kind of dilapidate out, right? Lots of houses left abandoned, like cars on the street. The houses are old and torn down, and it's all completely blech. I don't know how else to explain it. But before we get to that, we'll build out this area which has a few more well-maintained places. And the base game has this abandoned house asset, which I use a lot of. I think it's part of the natural disasters DLC. Yeah, this asset that I'm using now, I think it comes with the natural disasters DLCs. So I try and combine those assets together with the Ken Leno college assets. I think that came with his university CCP. Is it university? Something like that. CCP. It's got these college assets which fit in so well because they are detailed with some old type decals around it. They don't have a lot of fencing and detailing, and so when I use them together with this abandoned asset that comes with the game, it blends in so beautifully. So with those assets down, we get a couple of the dirt decals. We splatter the dirt decals all over the place. Then you've got these, I think they're also called dirt decals, but they're gray. I slap those all over onto the streets, and that gives the whole place a nice old and worn down look. And then I flood the whole place with props and abandoned cars and crates and so on. Now in these spaces, or some of the spaces, I try and not build concrete roads as you see them. So where I put roads is where I plan to put houses. And then over here, as we start to put down all of these abandoned houses, I use the decal assets and I use them to create what looks like roads in between all the places that we put these abandoned houses. So the idea is that those areas once had roads, but now they are all, I guess, worn down and torn down. The gravel and tar has, disappeared over time, and the dirt and stuff has taken over. And this asset is just brilliant for doing that. And once I put all of these down, and then you slap down these mud assets as well, and then this overgrown grass. So this overgrown grass is called the mountain grass. I think it's by not King Leno, man. I think it's by Pidelmo. It is a prop asset, so it's quite big, but it doesn't wave around like trees. But that doesn't matter because it captures the look that you want. Once you put that down, splatter down all of these props and tall grasses by Mr. Mason, the whole place just comes alive, and the whole abandoned look, the old look, the slightly ghostly feel of this entire area really comes out. And I think the combination of all of this has helped capture all of this very nicely. So you can see how when we look at the train accident area coming towards the residential space, how you go from the abandoned houses into a place that is still occupied. And I really think this is a nice blend out to the outskirts of this town. It really gives this place a lot of history and a lot of life, I think. And I think I've capped off this town in the exact way that I would have liked to. So over here, it's just continuing the residential space. This area is still fairly well, what's the word? I have no idea. English has escaped me. This place is still fairly well occupied. The houses are still nice, but then as we get closer to the train track, we will blend it out in the same way that we did the previous area, and then we'll just move between that whole well-maintained, well-looked after set of houses, and then blend it out to the areas that is abandoned and so on. Now, if you listen to the background track that's playing here, I found this track by, I think it's Aries Beats. It's called Spooky Wave something. Spooky something wave. I thought it was such a fitting track for this build because, you know, this whole area is meant to have this weird, spooky, and kind of funky story behind it, and I thought that track captured it very nicely. So as we build out the rest of this space, I just want to keep quiet for a bit so that you can enjoy the atmosphere that is created by this track, because I think it really, really captures it very, very nicely. Oh, I love it. I think that track just captured that whole atmosphere beautifully. Anyways, moving on from that. So we're now on this side where, again, we're carrying through that whole abandoned look and feel. So on the outskirts of this town, we're going to put down a couple of these old warehouses. I use procedural objects to convert some of these into PO just so that I can stick them into the ground and then give it that look as though it's been overtaken by the dirt. So that gives you an idea of how long these sort of places have been abandoned for. So by sinking them in, it just looks like the ground is eroded over it, or there's been sand that has piled up for so long that it's basically starting to cover up a lot of these places. And then continue to use these mountain grass assets to cover up this entire place, props and so on. Now, originally I had wanted this space to have farmland. So on the opposite side, so if you go towards the right as you're looking at it, there are farms there at the base of that big abandoned, I think it's called, what do we call the Count's Forge, I believe was the name that was given to it. The area below that space is residential areas with farmland, and I'd wanted to carry that through to this entire area. But then in the sort of test builds that I didn't like the way it looked. So this whole area originally I had put houses with farms and so on. It didn't quite fit in with what we had just built of the abandoned residential areas. So I decided to change the plan for this entire place and rather make it also more of the abandoned space and have it end right at the highway. So in a way, you could say some of this area got cleared out so that they could build a highway. But again, this land, either because of the spooky history behind it or because the owners don't want to sell it, it was left untouched. But there's one or two places where I stuck in some of these houses. So these houses originally were meant to be the first set of outskirt farms. I left those in because I thought, well, there's one or two places where a couple of brave souls went, they bought and they built this area. They bought this big lot, but they're not necessarily farmers, but they've got this big lot and they've got their houses there. And then the area around it is just, regular bush and regular grass. But I think changing from having farmlands here to the more history-rich type of build with the abandonment and the different types of things that are abandoned, I think adds so much to it. So in this area, we've got factories that are abandoned. We've got houses that are abandoned. We've got railway tracks and so on. And all of that kind of blends in nicely. Because we had that rail track coming through here, I figured if we're going to have more abandoned areas and if we're having train accidents happening further up the track, then those trains must have been going somewhere. And that led to me changing the plans for this whole area. So up here, we will have an actual old train yard, but then just below it, where we're currently building, we will stick down residential areas. So around here, the spooky history and the scaredness of people to buy and revamp the old areas doesn't really exist. But around here, they decided, well, this area is still worth developing. And so this area still got some residential development. It also could be attributed to the fact that I'll be building a university just on the other side of this highway. So because of that, the land value in this entire area rose up and it made more sense for people to actually be able to stay here, because I can imagine a university being there would create employment for quite a number of people. It's being within its vicinity would also make it easier to attend it, get your education and so on. So with all those factors, this area got a little bit more love, and so the entire place saw more development over time. And because it's also so close to this residential area just at the bottom of the screen, there's the commercial space that is just to the bottom right, and then you've got a school here. It makes sense that this immediate area would be valued quite highly. Oh, you've also got the zoo not too far from here. So the entire value of this place is fairly high, and so I think the houses being here and this area still being nicer and neater and more upkept, if that's a thing, makes a bit of sense. And so I decided to put all of that here. But then I ended quite abruptly on this road just to the top, because on the other side we're gonna have the old rail yard space. But so the development happened and took place right up to as close as possible to that space. And then with the old rail yard, either for historic reasons or again because the owner doesn't want to sell, that piece of land is still in its old state. So that's where this space is. So all those trains that were having all those accidents were probably headed here. This was probably some kind of a depot of sorts, maybe an old area where they could bring in goods, import or export. That's what this sort of space was. And over time, as it got abandoned, as the new rail yard developed more towards the center of town, this place gradually stopped getting a lot of traffic and a lot of visits, and so the entire area was over time abandoned. And then again, we've got all of these old train cars that are here. I use procedural objects to just change some of them, make some of them fall over, they're lying flat. Either had some vandalists come and just say, hey, can we tip over this train car? I don't know, but something happened and all these some of the train carts fell over, others are still standing. And then we're going to have a couple of warehouses and old warehouses that we're going to put down and then completely overgrow this entire space because it is not used, it is abandoned, and we want to continue to capture that look and feel. So yeah, that is it for this town. Like I mentioned, I am going to put this up on my Discord server. I'm going to open up the name suggestions channel. I would like a name and a history or a story for this entire space. I would love for the story to be kept around something that is legend, so something spooky, something unexplained, to capture what people think caused the accidents, what led to a lot of the abandonment that has happened. I think if we can capture a story or get a story that captures all of that essence, I think that will be awesome. So yeah, if you want to give a name and a backstory, get onto the Discord server, name suggestion channel. I am going to post it there. Well, at the time of this video being live, it should hopefully be in, or I'll probably post it the next day. I'll see. Otherwise, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think this has been my most history-rich episode. I really enjoyed building this, and I want to build more things with more backstories like this because it really makes it easier to build. Big thanks to every single person who watches. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, what you enjoyed, what you would like to see. I read all your comments. I really take a lot of that into account when building. Big thanks to my patrons, those that continue to support me over on Patreon. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And next video, hopefully university, we get this entire town complete, and then we will get a name for this whole town. So again, if you want to give a name, please jump on the Discord server and look out for that request when it comes in. I'm hoping to just build a little foundation to the airport in the episode after the university, and then hopefully I can get City of Tando working, and then we can get an episode or two out in that one. All right, again, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment, leave a like, let me know what you enjoyed, what you would like to see, and I'll really take all of that into account. Take it easy. And until I see you all in the next one, keep safe, have a good one, and I'll see you all then. Cheers, everybody.